And
Vim is also a host.
cool. So
Yes, yeah.
before you start, can I just grab 2 minutes? If you don't
Yeah,
mind.
please,
Go ahead.
please.
Sure.
Okay, cool. So Alexis, Wish, and myself, we had spoken to the internal operator SDK team just today, this morning.
Very good.
So we spoke to 2 developers, and actually they are willing to come to one of these meetings, spend 30 minutes with us for Q&A and guidance and other things. We have also spoken directly about the Helm issue with them, and also in general support for our community here by attending the meeting. So they are willing to do that. They can be here. A subset of them can be attending our meeting here, and they can answer our questions, or they can provide some guidance. So what we need from our side is if we are ready with the questions, and if you can tell them when they should be attending this meeting, I can communicate to them.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Bella. That's very helpful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Our findings will probably be completely insignificant in comparison, but yeah, to have them here. But anyway, that's really cool. Yeah, sure. I'll crack on and we can, if somebody can monitor hands, because I don't know how to see
Yeah,
hands
I'll take
when you're
care.
sharing.
Yeah.
Okay, so desktop 2.
Okay, cool. And do you think we can have them next week, or do we need some more time, Fiacre?
I would have them today, gladly, Bala. Yeah.
Next week would be great. Yes.
Yeah.
Next week. Okay.
Like
Cool.
yeah, so yeah, just to give a bit of context, we probably I was going to do a slide deck, but we just threw it into a document. But I think we kind of discussed some of our findings, in Slack and maybe just in kind of general chat so far. But yeah, we'll try and go through. Is that who has it? I was hoping David was on the call.
Yeah, please go ahead with this, and then I will ask them
Yeah.
to attend this meeting next week. Cool.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. Yeah, so we just we started having a look at the parent charts. So your standard kind of FreeFileGC, the latest TarGZ for the FreeFileGC. As discussed, we hit an issue in terms of the nesting. Of the charts themselves. There was some, I think this one was open, so people are seeing the same issue in terms of nesting of the charts and using the operator SDK init command. I think this one has been closed and a new one opened, or it was asked to close it and open a new one.
Fiacre, Wim, it's Wim quickly. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but is this related to the fact that you have multiple charts nested in the same tar file, right? I think it's related to that, if I understand right. So because here you have everything from FreeFileGC in one big chart, basically, and that's causing the issue, I think, right? That's okay, understood.
Pretty much, yeah. So if we look at where are the charts themselves? So the main chart is here, and we have the subcharts like so. The issue with the tool is that when you run the init, for some reason it tars these. It tars these and then packages them into the charts directory within the project kind of base directory. And then the tool can't find it for some reason. So my hack or my workaround was to essentially unpack the TarGZs in the correct place, and then run the tool, run the SDK.
So quick question. If instead you do it just for UPF, that this problem wouldn't exist.
Possibly. We run through? I was hoping Davide was on the call.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah. I did that as well. So pure UPF or pure SMF, I think for me that worked, but I didn't try the full.
No, I tried that last week too. The only thing I saw was the CLD looks very empty.
So it does generate. I should have an example here. 1 second. Do I have a? probably should have had this prepped, but yeah. So
sorry,
essentially,
I'm hoping the session is more interactive, so that's why we cut in with questions.
Yeah,
Sorry
sure,
about that.
definitely. Yeah. So essentially, what it does, so it packages them. So here's the charts themselves. What am I doing here? That is the. So yeah, on the templates.
It's just a blob, an object. So
Yeah. So
It's a big blob. Yeah, that's
in
what I
terms of
saw.
the samples, where are we?
The
Config
samples has everything. The samples are nice, but then
yeah,
the CLD
samples. So
was
this one here, yeah, so this one here does have most of the, or yeah, as you said, it just gives you the full spit out of all of the values YAML within, say, the AMF chart itself, right? Yeah, this is pretty ugly and probably not what you want.
Part, it's a text up there, right? If you scroll up a little bit, right? Because it looks like YAML here, but sorry, even more up. If you scroll more up, yeah, you see configuration. No, sorry, just a few lines down.
Yeah.
Config
map, a line and a dash that basically
right. That's really important. That means that everything under here is actually text. It is a string. It is not. It looks like it's part of the same YAML, but it isn't, right? Yeah.
So I guess you guys have more experience in developing and putting together CRDs, but yeah, it doesn't look very friendly.
This is a free5gc artifact, right? Because free5gc actually does this, right? This is the config file for free5gc, which happens to be in YAML, but it's embedded in the configuration, right? So this is not something that have anything to do with
this is the Helm values.yaml actually. This is values.yaml.
Are you sure? I think it's the first level of configuration, not the second.
Wait. Look at this. Oh yeah, you're right. This is the config map. This is the config map.
Right. This is the config map, but if you scroll down even more, you'll see real YAML. I know. I'm pointing it out because so these things.
So this is your config map. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then obviously these are your values YAML.
Right.
Is that correct? Yeah. And then you're obviously global overrides here as well. Yeah.
Exactly.
I didn't dig into this too much now, but yeah, I see what you mean. So that's your config map, and then you have your actual values YAML here.
Right. So it's a mix here of string and actual YAML.
Yeah. But that's so we like in terms of the nesting, I guess you probably could resolve to where I didn't dig through. I don't know why this happens when I'm sharing on Team or Zoom. But yeah, in terms of the nesting, you probably could resolve. There were some workarounds, etc. Blah blah blah. Which we just kind of stuck with the hack or the workarounds of unpacking the subcharts from TarGC and then running the tool again, which seemed, but obviously the CRD that's generated from that is huge, is ridiculous. Also we had issues in terms of the tool was complaining in relation to both the chart dependencies and also it's missing a version, an explicit version on the chart.yaml. Whether that's a minor issue or not, but it looks for an explicit version for the subchart if you have the dependencies in your top level chart.yaml. What else did we hit? So yeah, well, this was related to the GTP5G, or the GTP5 kernel driver for this has been upgraded to a later version that's running for the whatever version was used for the Nefio operators.
Wow. You're ahead of us already. Actually, we haven't hit that.
Yeah, I think we upgraded to, I can't remember what version we upgraded to. I think it was 8. Anyway, but yeah, we need to use a later version to satisfy the.
That
was the UPF maybe or no? No.
It's only needed by UPF actually.
It's UPF for the SIM. I can't remember which. Yeah.
It wasn't a huge big deal, but
no. Yeah, but it's something we came across anyway. Yeah, but obviously, so everything comes up and running. This is only on a single cluster, so it was all running within. I think the majority of the prerequisites were satisfied by the setup of the sandbox. Where am I going? Charts really produced. Where are the prerequisites?
In docs.
1 second. Yeah, so we have this. So we had this, the multi CNI. I think yes, we have to upgrade the GTP5 kernel. Ham3 kubectl. We didn't bother with persistent volume. I think these were satisfied by the setup of the sandbox to a degree, but again, we're only working on a single VM or a single cluster even. Sorry, but yeah, ultimately the ping, there was no ping outside. I was asking questions, can we ping the data network? But I think even with the Nephew operators, we can't ping externally, right? If I understand.
Yeah, maybe the network doesn't agree because there's a lot of other Nephew systems in place where you have to set up the joint
but we did,
and the IP address is used by UPF for you to
we did a bit of kind of packet sniffing, and we did see some traffic going between the SIM and the UPF. So there was some.
But at least between SMF and UPF, you see like PFCP from the log.
There was some traffic. I should have recorded it, but that is a while ago now. So from that, then so then we switched to the next objective was, and I think we bit off more than we could chew here, because I think there's lots of, well, not lots, but and maybe my understanding of a complex Helm chart is limited, but to me, in terms of the networking, was the main issue that we hit. So the idea here was to essentially swap out the existing AMF with an operator SDK AMF operator. And what did we do? So Davide, jump in here if I'm struggling. So we tried to align. Yeah, we tried to align the image, the image or the version to what was running in Nephew. I think that was 321. The AMF image version. We tried to have a look at. So essentially, ultimately, what we had to try and do was to try and align so within the AMF chart itself, it defines its NAD. Where am I going? So you guys probably know these charts inside out. But yeah, so you have your NAD definition here, which doesn't align with what do we try and do? Ultimately, we basically just deployed everything. So deployed the full sandbox and full kind of end to end. Tried to take a snapshot of the Nephew AMF, I'm going to call it, and try to replicate or mirror that within the operator SDK AMF. And yeah, we hit quite a few issues in terms of trying to align the NAD, and then there was issues around MAC VLAN, IP VLAN, and even trying to undeploy the AMF from the regional cluster was a little bit messy. I'd love to ask and get a clear answer as to how to delete a package cleanly from Nephew. There probably is a way, but we're kind of hacking our way through just deleting the package revision manually. I don't know if that's the way we're supposed to be doing it.
Okay.
But you're laughing, but I'd like an answer, Stephen, if you can. But so and then we just spun up the operator and using the auto generated CRD. We didn't so like ultimately our findings, this is pretty sparse, guys. Sorry, there's probably more detail here, but ultimately what we found was the Helm charts themselves. Like I suppose the objective here was to, if a vendor came in with their own AMF, could they swap out or swap in their AMF? That was kind of the idea really, or the concept. And we found that ultimately you probably would have to modify the Helm charts to align with the current setup within the sandbox. I don't know if that's a realistic experiment or POC. That was kind of the objective.
And that's probably the case. That's probably the case no matter which mechanism you're using to push the Helm charts out into the workload cluster. I mean, modifying the Helm charts to work towards the Nephew infra is always, no matter how you do it, it's going to be a pain in the you know what, and I guess that's where you come in, Vim.
No, but I mean that's correct. So I was going to say, so that is correct for two reasons. I think is one is we took the approach of using NF deployment, right, as a baseline where all the information is coming from, right. That means that any Helm chart of today somehow need to be providing the input. So there is two problems, I think. One is the input that we supply at the moment from the management cluster needs to be processed to submit it to the values file that the Helm chart has. And the second thing that we want, in my view, is some of the resources that these Helm charts, and for the first one, I don't think you need to modify the Helm chart, but you need a preprocessor to provide input to the Helm chart as they are today. So that is one.
Right.
So in other words, you cannot just deploy the Helm chart in an operator and be done. So in my view, there needs to be something in the operator that does that pre-processing and then puts it as input to a Helm chart, right?
Yeah. So there was All right, go ahead.
And then the second thing is that we are generating resources that are today generated in the Helm chart. So you have to that for me the modification you have to do in the Helm chart is to do not generate these resources.
Yeah, and so I absolutely agree. And that picture I put up was trying to capture that. Like, there's the SDK side of things, we can do stuff to to populate the values.yaml from the kept configuration or whatever, but it somehow kind of short-circuiting the resource configuration in the Helm chart and making it point at Nepio. That's not. Yeah. You have to understand the structure of how the Helm chart does that in order to do it. So it's not going to be easy, I don't think.
If you have a mechanism to capture the inputs, but also you would still end up with a quite like even this level of I don't like Helm very much, or in terms of the templating and the kind of.
Yeah, so these are basically your fixed values.yaml. So when you point to a Helm chart, it already has the values.yaml. So all this if statement will go away. You have one mode. By the time you're generating something, it has one. But then the big thing actually on the flip side, the one thing that is definitely missing on this, which is pointed out by the PLC document that I had, is there has to be a layer in between where it takes the Nepio input, NF deployment. And then able to fill out as much as the values.yaml input as possible. So you have a values.yaml CLD. So that CL you're going to have to apply at some point to the world cluster. And that CL, a subset of that CL, one would imagine, is fully satisfied by NF deployment. So the NF deployment input has enough information for you to fill out not the whole thing, but a part of that values.yaml that is needed. So for the things that you cannot do, the things that is not covered by NF deployment, you have to create vendor extension CLDs. So the bad thing is there is an extra step of doing this. It sounds kind of bad, but then the fact is, and I explained that to a lot of people internally already, is that the definition of vendor extension has to happen whether or not you use Helm or not. That's irrespective of Helm. This is the design. Yeah, irrespective of whether you use Helm as a backend or you write an operator as a backend. You have to conform to Nepio NF deployment, because otherwise you're not onboarding to Nepio. And two, NF deployment is intentionally very minimal. So any even FreeFiGC requires a vendor extension. So you have to define those vendor extensions. So no, it doesn't matter what we do. That is basically the onboard design case that has to happen. So once you identify those, we build them, and then on the back end side, you have to write some logic that maps the NF deployment input plus this vendor extension CL input into the values.yaml CL input that is needed. Yeah, so that thing is missing. And then I'm hoping, I'm not sure whether that's correct. I'm hoping we'll find out that we don't have to change the charts, because changing the charts is something we want to avoid.
I think you have to, I think, because I was just going to ask, can you go back to the chart that you just have with the NF deployment? With the AMF, this one here with the NUT, right? So Stephen, here is my view of the situation, right? As a vendor, right, you have to support Nephew and non-Nephew, right? So that means that you want to reuse the charts for timing, unless Nephew is 100% everywhere. This is something. So in other words, the Helm chart you have today will stay, and they will evolve, right? But so what? And this is the thing that. So if you go back to the AMF with the network attachment definition, so the one statement that you would that we would require, in my view,
we need VLAN, right? At least we need VLAN.
Wait, no, because we will generate. So the NADs come from we generate, right? Or whether we do it in-house or not. So
we don't apply.
So in other words, what you have to do here, I mean, in Nokia, it's very similar, by the way. If you look to network, where is it? Interface SBA. Go to Interface SBA. No, that's the package, right? Okay, I was asking the chart itself.
Yeah. 1 second, sorry. Where am I going?
Yeah, that's the one. That's one towards 5CC. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, that's one. Yeah.
Yes, here, yeah, this one. So what you have to do, in my view, is right at the top, right? Because we do similar things. So every resource is a separate file. So at the top, what you have to do is if Nephew, if in the values you basically say Nephew, you make a statement and that encapsulates everything. And at the end of this file, you put another end statement. So that means that you do a nest ISO the if. So that means if Nephew is true, then this should not be executed, because this whole thing will come from our side, because that's the infra piece, right? So and there is another one, but all the rest can stay, in my view. All the rest, and then I think all the rest is probably is able to stay as is.
That's actually what I think we did maybe tried that at one point, to just drop this NAD and deploy the AMF without it.
But Fiacra, that will not work unless you do the preprocessor piece that Steven and I was trying to explain. So you need to put that piece
and have the inputs. Yeah.
That basically sets this to not enable, so that you can skip the entire NAD generation.
Yes, and then we have that the preprocessor will provide input to the values. So you cannot do this in isolation. You have to do the both of thing.
But you have to. You have basically that's an integrating. So that's why I'm saying the next if this. So I would like to. So this is Fiatra's conclusion. It's been a little more elaborate. What is your really good feelings about the operator SDK, Helm operators, in terms of both generating CLDs as well as executing your input? Do you have any very strong opinions for or against it? I kind of rely on you to give us that input.
Sorry, you guys know a lot more about CRD and the inner workings of Kubernetes than I do. But I one thing we didn't get to actually, and whether it's of use or not, is in terms of the, why do I lose my tabs if I'm sharing? This is silly. We didn't try and the overrides value, or providing overrides to the charts. We didn't test this properly in Anger. Plus the documentation isn't. I hope I'm not criticizing anyone on the call here, but the documentation isn't great. So yeah, and I don't know how well it's supported. I think Stephen, you linked in with the Slack channel and stuff like that. I didn't really go through the Slack channel discussion, but I
did one round myself, and then I use other documentation outside of this one to get a sense of how to do them. Yes, it is probably
coming from
it'd be nice to have some improvement. Yes.
Yeah, if I'm honest, so we spent a fair bit kind of looking at the Flux, which is kind of where we're and using Flux CD to deploy the charts. It seems to have a lot more in terms of a lot more options, if you like, or a lot more. It's a more extensive support for what we would like to do, like providing inputs or providing overrides, and having full kind of, Helm, well, not full, but, Helm life cycle management, you know what I mean, built in within that operator or that controller. And compared to, just having a, I'd hate to have to make the call for a yay or nay on this, but I would like to get more input from the Red Hat guys, to see if we're missing something, if there's more that, if it's, that's.
So
Is that an answer? Yeah.
I would add, yeah, I can see, like, looking at the technical issues, and one is more mature or better supported than the other. But I wonder what you think about the approach itself. Let's assume that the operator SDK can be fixed with all our issues and even include schema validation for values.yaml, which I think would be a great feature. Let's say we have a wish list for it, and that wish list is fulfilled. Is the basic approach of creating an operator with Go code that would wrap the Helm chart? We had all these assumptions regarding we believe it would be a better road for the future to eventually have a vendor replace the Helm code with real operator logic, right? Or even include both, right? You can do the day one reconciliation with Helm and then include code that does day two work in Go. So, but I don't know. There are a lot of assumptions we're making here. And I think at the end of the day, it's vendors, right? Ericsson, Nokia, Samsung, who are here, and others who can give us the feedback whether this whole idea, this whole concept, whether it's viable.
Yeah.
Right. So it's more important for the vendor communities to give us feedback of whether or not this is something that you feel comfortable onboarding, in terms of saying, hey, this is easy for me if I do it this way.
So if I may say, because I've been discussing this within Nokia a little bit, right?
You are a vendor, so yeah, go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So I'm discussing with our guys that write the Helm chart, by the way. So it's not just my personal view. The point is this, right? If I think this exact tool is made, would be good if you take a Helm chart as is and don't do any modification and use it, right? That's but I think
that would be the ideal case. Yes.
Yes, and I think unfortunately we are in that situation for the reason I explained before. And given that, then this is not enough, or the way what you have to, because what you have to do is have an ability to extend this project with a set of other codes, right? That then uses thing, and then or at least our view is that if you look to the code base and stuff like that, you're better off doing something different. That's our view of Nokia, because the fact that you want to render a Helm chart remains, I think, right? But you don't need all the other tools around this that are not really needed anymore then. You see? There's a lot of stuff that happens here because you're assuming that your input is values.yaml and you render completely the Helm chart as is. That's the assumption of the tool, in my view. I mean, we'll ask next week with the people. But if that assumption doesn't hold, there's a lot of baggage that you take with you, which creates a lot of overhead for something that you can do in a more lightweight fashion.
Yeah, obviously there's other stuff here in terms of RBAC and it uses customize under the hood, etc., which we didn't really dig into much. But yeah, ultimately, the input values and the rendering of the chart and the CRD that gets generated is the crux of the thing, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I think probably from sorry, Sandeep versus Sando.
Yeah. Yes, Sandeep.
You
for a while. That's another vendor. That's a vendor perspective too. So
absolutely, yeah.
So are you, though, by the way.
So okay, no. So we tried this tool in a Samsung some time back. I would say 1.5 months back, and when we started with Nephew, then we end up asking ourselves what is the benefit we are trying to get in this SDK, because we generally deploy our NF in Helm charts right now, and that is perfectly fine. When we came to we started doing Nephew, we thought that okay, we will have an ability like for whatever the promises are there, like for example, intent-based automation and kind of a on-the-go infra availability and all those things. So we couldn't understand, like we didn't realize that it is possible here, because we saw that here that okay, we provide our Helm chart, it just deploy our Helm chart, and we do not have an ability to do any kind of a modification or kind of API calling to do any closed loop automation or intent realization. So So we didn't find much. I mean, maybe we didn't do much. I don't know whether we did enough to investigate. But initially, what our thinking was that whatever the nephew wants, we couldn't understand if this SDK can do that. So we left that, and I still have that question. Like, even if we do this, let's say even if all these things we do, and sorry, 1 minute. Even if you do that, let's say it is doing everything whatever you want, right? And there's no issue, whatever the bug you're reporting. What are the benefits we can take from here? Let's say saying that okay, we are now having a Helms into the Nephew world, and these are the benefits you can take from the Nephew. I still have that question.
So
Yeah,
this is for ease of this is all purely for ease of onboarding.
Yeah,
we are as Nephew, really seriously, as Nephew, it's not just Google. In the Nephew in general, we would love to see a day where everyone just build operators, and then you don't have to onboard using Helm charts anymore. So we do want to have that transitions, but then for now, to onboard folks to see the benefits of Nephew, we are committed by TSC mandate to support Helm onboarding.
So even if let's say it's onboarded, then how we provide the benefit? Like what are the benefit we'll say from the Nephew? Okay, it's onboarded. Now you can do the ABC. Can you just from my understanding, can you tell me?
But Sandeep, if I may,
please.
Right? So the thing is the following. I mean, if you look, okay, what I would advocate, right, is the following, right? You have a regular operator as you do today, right? I of course probably simplified with the SDK and stuff like that. But let's say we can embed a Helm chart inside, right? And the reason is just for, let's say, I don't know whether Samsung has Helm chart. I'm assuming yes, but we have Helm charts. Ericsson has Helm charts and stuff like that. Right. So, but we built, let's say, a shell around the Helm chart. So basically a regular operator shell in which you can embed a Helm chart. Okay, let's assume you have that. That means that you can use all the Nephew semantics as is. The fact that there is a Helm chart in it is, I would advocate that we just use it to render the resources and don't use Helm to do installation and the whole shebang. So that's up to the operator itself to do so, right? But the Helm chart is just there to basically generate a bunch of resources based on values file, right? So that's basically what it does. So in the operator, you get some resource like a deployment, a config map, a service, a bunch of resources that you need to make your application run, right? Stateful sets, if you have that, and so on and so forth. So they get rendered, but at the end of the day, the end customer, so what you see as a shell inside of that operator is input is KRM, right? Is our NF deploy with whatever extensions or vendor extensions or specific extensions that you need. And the output is a set of KRM, right? That you need to make your function operate. So that's what but if you do something like that, you have the full benefits, because at the end of the day, all your input and output is KRM. All the rest is doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah. So in that case, it's a one-time activity you're saying? After that, there's no onboarding.
So what you will see is that then it depends. In my view, if you look to the feedback that we're getting inside of Nokia, what our product unit are saying is that we will, if Nephew is successful and is going to dominate the world, then the Helm chart support that we have to maintain, we have to drop, right? So that's basically the way that they look at this, right? So the Helm chart will disappear from the moment, let's say, Nephew is the de facto standard across the board. But at the moment, we have customers on which we have to still have Helm as if today, and they use Helm for the full 9 yards, right? And of course, I would advocate that we should go to the Nephew approach, and then as a result, and that's how we can support both, if you see. So because you are not going to ditch from day one, even if we have an SDK, we are not going to ditch the next day Helm support, because there will be customers who are still asking us to support Helm, right? So that's a little bit the way I see it.
Yeah, and a lot of hands are there. I have follow-up question, but I'll let others
just very quickly. I think Liam's gonna say it anyway. But just from a user experience or user point of view, I would much prefer to use Flux than using the operator SDK. Just from going through the processes. That's, you know, it doesn't offer you the same. You don't get your own rolled operator for your Helm chart with Flux, but just for ease of onboarding, if that's the main objective here, you know, there's no contest really. I think Liam, sorry, Liam, go ahead.
Yeah, Liam.
I'm just go ahead.
Yeah, no, I just want to add a question because, see, I think for pure Helm chart onboarding, I agree. But if you have to do a shell, the pre-processing in front, does it still hold, Fiacre? When using Flux?
I think that there is, sorry, I think Liam's going to answer that question, but I think that we had plans, we had something in the works in terms of, I think even John started some kind of kept function to manage or to maybe offer something along those lines in terms of taking inputs from YAML or taking inputs and providing that to your package. So that was where we were planning to go with say the Flux approach, that you would be able to provide. Sorry, Liam, you go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Basically, I think, well, I wouldn't call this Ericsson's position, but my strong technical opinion would be that probably for us today, the Flux approach kind of gives us allows us to continue to use the existing Helm charts, and then, you know, get our toes dirty with Helm, or get our toes into the water with Nephio. Now the issue is that if we go down the reason that I'm not too keen on the operator SDK, the Helm operator SDK, is because we probably will get an SDK generated that will be sort of, you know, do 80% of the stuff, but it's the 20% that's going to be the problem. And I think, even talking internally, if it's a situation where we want actually to go the whole to go and do the operator SDK approach for some of our NFs, we'll probably go the whole hog and, you know, just go and do them direct. You know, if we have to put a fair bit of development. So, you know, if we're actually going to go and do a big change, we consider maybe going with a full SDK, you know, a full kind of operators, you know, CRD, Nephio or not, I don't know. I mean, that's all, you know, the product people. But you know, we'd probably go with a full CRD rather than go with a kind of a generated one for the YAML, because you're kind of getting you're kind of getting you know, it's kind of a hearsay almost thing then. Now, in order for to keep we'll do what we can to keep we do what we can to make the Helm charts as, you know, somehow to hook. It'd be good if we can maybe do some sort of it might be some kind of proprietary thing that we have to do, that we have some way of doing networking in the Helm charts, which we can kind of hook into some sort of proprietary operator where we can talk to the Nephio worlds on the workload clusters. But one thing that we think we can do is maybe you know, to generate maybe kept packages to wrap the Helm using the SDK, and also take the things like namespaces or some of the a certain select few important parameters from the kept configuration and feed that into something that can generate the values that YAML. So I don't know, that's early days, but that's sort of my thinking that I've been running past one or two people so far. If that's not too confusing. So in other words, try and make the existing stuff as Nephio kind of, make the existing stuff, you know, fit into the Nephio world as much as possible. But if it gets to the stage where you're actually looking at, you know, redeveloping Helm charts, you have to ask the question: is it time to jump now? You know? Yeah.
No, that's right, because I thought that was our premise. That's why when Vim was providing an input of saying that, oh, you have to change the Helm charts anyway, then the values actually drop drastically of onboarding using Helm, because, you know, onboarding using Helm means that we understand that vendors is still going to maintain their Helm charts for a very long time, and then we would like them to be able to onboard. I mean, not long term, we would like them to get rid of them, but then at the medium term, not even just short, we would like to allow them to onboard even with their new versions of Helms and Helm charts and stuff like that they're coming in. But then if you say that you would to onboard Nephio, we require you to change your Helm charts, then I don't know if the values are really that high. Sorry, Go ahead.
Well, again, maybe some minor, just to finish, follow up very quickly. Maybe some minor tinkering.
Yeah, that last example, if it's just an if statement that we have to modify, that we can change on our code, on our adapter code, for example, side, that's fine. But then if you suddenly have to ask vendors to maintain 2 versions or more of Helm charts, then we start have to like kind of think about if we need a different approach.
I think
go ahead, Bala.
I think a lot of hands are there. Let's take Tal Bala.
Yeah, Bala.
Sure. So, I put a bunch of stuff in the chat.
Okay.
Oh. Go ahead, Stephen. Yeah, finish your thought.
I don't know who's first. Are you first, or are you Bala? Is Bala first, or you first? I'm sorry.
Tal is ahead of me.
Tal's first. Okay, go ahead.
So I put a link to the document we send of our options. I wonder, Fiacre, if you can just click the link.
Yeah.
I think all of these are still relevant. We're kind of back to the drawing board here, maybe. But 2 things. If you can scroll down to what I call D2 option 3, you can see it in the. This is what Wim mentioned. We've been calling it the sandwich approach. The idea that instead of we already have this actually as a POC, right, in Porch, where there's a kept function that basically does the same thing as calling Helm template instead of. So what we're doing with Flux, and actually I also linked, there's in the operator framework, there's a repo that I linked that has it's basically very similar to Flux. Like the idea is that it seems to be its own kind of it's one operator. If you scroll down, you'll see that they kind of the previous one.
I'm jumping around here. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, if you scroll down, you'll see that it does a runtime. You load the chart, and then they're trying to do something that does the work. And I see that this repo has a commit 2 weeks ago, so it seems to be something that people are actively working on. But I don't. It's in the operator framework group, but I don't know what this means in terms of operator SDK. So again, this is a question we can have for Red Hat. Config sync also has a built-in feature similar to Flux that we haven't really explored. But anyway, I want to go back to the sandwich approach because Wim mentioned it, and also John isn't in this meeting today, but early on, John was also kind of pushing to this as well. The idea being exactly what Wim said, right? That we're actually exploding the Helm chart using Helm template instead of Helm install, and it basically becomes a complete normal KRM package, right? So within the ket file, you would simply put this in the pipeline. It would render your Helm chart using Helm template, right? And then we go through the usual Nefio process, right? It becomes kind of transparent. It just becomes a generator of the resources of the KRM. Now, this might still be on the table. I mean, it might be something worth doing another POC and exploring, to see how well this works. I think that the kept function already exists. So I think we can go ahead and try to use it. My concern early on was, and it might be a concern that could be dismissed using with a POC, that Helm template is different from Helm install, right? Because Helm kind of is designed to use sometimes runtime variables from the cluster on which you're installing, right? There are specific variables in Helm that you can use that have to do with where you actually installing this, right? So if you're doing Helm template, it just puts in some dummy values there. So you generate KRM. The problem might not be the right KRM, right? Because if the Helm chart was designed with these runtime values, then it needs Helm install. It can't use Helm template. But I don't know. It could be a viable approach here, right? So again, if we're saying that vendors might have to tweak their Helm charts a little bit, this might be the most Nefio-centric approach, right? Because it turns Helm into a tiny implementation detail within the pipeline, but we're dealing at the end of the day with raw KRM when it goes to the cluster, right? So we're not changing the deployment, right? The deployment still uses Nefio, whatever that is, right? Right now with Nefio, we're using config sync, but if there are other approaches in the future that don't use config sync, it doesn't matter. They're just dealing with these KRM packages, right? So I don't know. Maybe this sandwich approach could still be on the table.
Okay, so in that case, when you put it on deployment repo, it's already fully resolved resources, and then the operator is not going to be, the operator will not even be touched, so it will just be deployed by the management on the management clusters and done.
And I don't think this will work, by the way, guys.
Yeah, I think
here's why.
It's a bit of a broken model. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's so the problem. Why in my view, why you cannot run it on the management cluster, all of this has to happen on the workload cluster for the exact reason as you said, Tal. You need the runtime parameters, right? So in my view, the model, I'm advocating the sandwich model, but it has to run on the workload cluster from my perspective. Because the thing is, first of all, some of these resources, so what you'll see is that we generate NADs, whether it happens on the workload cluster or management cluster at the end shouldn't matter, right? Because I think we are advocating an approach where NADs are decoupled from the network function, no matter what, whether we run it distributed or centralized, or shift left or shift right. For me, it doesn't really matter. I think we are still advocating to have NADs separated, which means that the operator is responsible on the workload cluster to merge them into the deployment file, right? Secondly, what you also want is that some of these resources get all asynchronously put onto the workload cluster, and the pre-processing function need to figure out first that they're all there before they can process the next step. So as such, I believe the sandwich approach still holds, but I don't believe you can run it on the management cluster. It has to run on the workload cluster.
Yeah. I'll add another issue here.
Yeah, because the operator would not be touched if you do it that way. If the management cluster is the one that renders
there's another important aspect here that so Helm install, we're treating it as just like day one and rendering the resources, right? But it actually does more, right? Helm actually adds a lot of annotations to every resource it does for managing it for day two, right? So you could, there are other Helm commands, for example, for upgrading, right? A chart or a deployment, right? And so you can change the values.yaml, and Helm can do the diff and know what it needs to do to redeploy the chart, right? So I don't know if vendors are using that feature of Helm, right? But it is a feature of Helm, right? So
yeah.
Point being that if you do a proper Helm install, then you can use Helm commands later to use it, right? So again, I'm not pushing for a specific version here. I'm just saying we have numerous options. We haven't really explored all of them in depth.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely need vendor community input.
See,
what's the extent of the features that you actually need from Helm? Because in this approach, it's just a TLM, right? So,
see, I have a point. I'll make it, but I'll let Bala speak for a long time here.
No, please go ahead with the discussion. Mine is slightly orthogonal. I'll go last.
Okay.
Please go.
Okay, thanks. So the point which I'm trying to say that there was a question like what operators are using and all those things. See, we had these problems, right? We had the Helm charts. So we had these we explored a lot of problem solutions. Ultimately, we found the vision that there is operator is the vision, right? So that's why we developed our own SDK, the Helm 2 operator SDK, and we had lots of Helm charts. So we just generated all those codes, and we were eventually able to move forward, right? All our NFs are actually deployed using controllers, and we're able to extract many features of Nephew and all those things. So with the real things there. So just for the completion, I'm stating here that we are able to move forward, right? I'm not telling that everybody to use it. There will be pros and cons. We found pros and cons, and we are rectifying it, and we are making it more robust and all those things as per our convenience. So just for the completion, I want to say that we are using our own in-house Helm 2 operator SDK, which we actually demoed, and we move forward. So
did you try that on the FreeFive.gc Helm charts?
Yeah, we have tried. It works. Okay. We have already deployed that.
You have supported all the things that are needed by that.
Yeah. Even we tried with ORAN. We work with the ORAN also, right? So there ORAN RIC is there. So we tried ORAN RIC Helm charts, and we are able to completely deploy them within few minutes, I would say, not seconds, to be too exaggerated. There were few bugs reported, so we fixed those bugs, right? And we are able to move forward.
Right. I actually linked all of those demos here too. It's exactly. It's another approach that Samsung is contributing the code right now. Very soon it will be available. I'm sorry, we're having Linux Foundation issues with the Nephew experimental org, but the code will be here really soon. And I think, yeah, that's another thing that we need to take seriously and look into. It's a proposal from Samsung.
Yeah, just the approach. I mean, maybe some disadvantage will be there. I don't know. Maybe that we'll see that. But for now, we're moving. Yeah, Wim, please.
So in my view, the approach that I'm advocating, if you go down a little bit, no, it's not there. It's actually, if you look to the charts above, right? It's actually this one. It's actually option 4. So, but rep. So what I'm advocating is that, and so Helm, I just the chart rendering, right? So nothing else.
Not to install.
So I shared the code. Not to install, so I shared the code. So basically, and whether you run it as a function or not, that's a choice you have from an SDK perspective, right? But you can run that as a sandbox, if you will, right? So within the operator. But basically, what it would do is you have basically if you look to the operator SDK, if you look to the code, you have a pre-processing pack. You generate your values input. You have a small modification of the chart. You render the chart. Get additional resources. You have to do post-processing, in my view, to do a little bit stuff, right? And then that's it. And if you have no Helm chart, that Helm block does not exist. So in other words, the operator SDK, so Helm is an option. So if you don't have Helm charts, that block does not run, or you don't need that. But the rest of the operator SDK remains exactly the same.
Okay.
And the code I shared, by the way, is the same code as Flux and Argo uses. So that's it's not even the code to do that rendering. It's 10 lines.
So Wim, I have another quick question for you. I do know that Nokia has another internal system similar to Flux.
Yes.
It's not public,
Encom?
but
Encom?
It's LMAAS, Life Cycle Management as a Service.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
So from what I see, it's pretty much
don't catch Wim off guard at all.
Yeah, I guess the general point I'm saying is that all vendors have been experimenting with approaches like this, whether it's using something off the shelf like Flux or developing their own. There's, to Fiakra's point, Flux just works.
Everybody likes their own wheel, but there's a working wheel there. The wheel is working.
No. See, the thing is, I'm not against Flux, by the way. So here is what we are saying inside of Nokia. If you have a Helm chart as is, use Flux, right? It's the best. It's one of the best tools for it. In this, we are not discussing reusing Helm chart as is, right? Because we still have to do the pre-processing and so on and so forth, right? So to give you a sense, right? Because the approach that I advocated, actually, some of our developers were already doing, and the reason is the following. Okay, we already have an operator, by the way, for our functions, but now we are building, let's say, a canary and upgrade operator, right? So because the operator typically just installed, so it's basically day one, and then some lifecycle management, but not a full-blown thing, right? So we have to do. So now typically to do, let's say, a canary upgrade, you have there's still a lot of manual actions to be taken, right? Now, if you do canary, you somehow have to figure out which resources are in the cluster, right? And if they were, in a lot of cases, still they are Helm installed. So we basically use the plugin that I shared to basically generate our Helm charts. To know which resources are there in order for us to do the canary. So we are actually using this. So this is not yet available, but we are actually developing that as we speak, so that you have the ability. So if Helm was used to do the installation, that we have an ability to find out which resources are rendered inside of the cluster. And so these type of things you cannot do with Flux. And that's the point what I'm trying to make, is that if you And that's the same with operator as the Helm operator SDK, in my view. As long as you take Helm chart as is and you just want to deploy it through a KRM-based system, use Flux or use those things, and they are perfect, right? But we are not in that situation, in my view. And that's why the approaches, and then what you see is that if you say use Flux, then you see that you need a lot of additional things in Flux, and then you go completely different path. And that's why I'm not advocating a Flux approach for this particular problem space.
I agree. I mean, most of the time I see these things, we need to do a lot of things around like these. This is our experience too. So that's why.
But because the thing is, to continue on the path that I was taking, right? If then Flux has its space and it does a very good job and various things, but from the moment you deviate and that's not in scope, you have a lot of baggage you get with Flux, right? And then the solution becomes way too complicated. And we have to keep that in mind, I think. Sorry, I'll let other people.
Yeah, I'm gonna hand back the share. I'm gonna hand back to Sam.
We have only 1 minute, so Bala, go ahead.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Mine is a kind of not been being participatory in this meeting as much as I would have wanted, and so I was thinking, my understanding rather is the goal of the SDK is not just the Helm, right? It's a general purpose. For example, somebody has a CRD, you should be able to generate. So overall, when we say onboarding, it is the SDK scope is not just limited to Helm. Is that the right understanding?
Yeah, of course. But it's just that the Helm onboarding is the major discussion point today.
Got it. Okay, thank you so much. And the other thing is probably if we are creating an abstraction layer on top of these SDKs, and we are calling it Nephew SDK, one thought is probably we can use horses for courses, and then I know it's kind of complicated situation. We can use the right tool behind the scenes, depending on what the inputs are. That's one thought that occurred to my mind. The other thing that occurred to my mind, just since we had this meeting with our internal team today, Alexis asked them about the GitOps stuff, and I am not innately familiar with SDK, but they said, yes, they are making it GitOps friendly as well, the operator SDK framework. So probably I'm saying that here because probably those are some of the questions that we may ask when we have them next week. So those are some of the
it's a bigger questions. Yeah. So this is more like do we adapt operator SDK as the core of Nephew SDK? So that would be that. I mean, what Fiacre did is one data point, and then we have other data points that hopefully come from folks that will come on board, comes on to the meeting next week.
Yeah. And we should definitely quiz the devs next week what they meant by they're making it operator SDK framework more GitOps friendly. So I was curious, but I don't know the details. You can ask them.
Yeah.
I think
what would be great. Would be great to learn too. Yes, looking forward to it.
I think we're over time, but can I just make one point? So if we can maybe if we need to gather a wish list, I would really appreciate input from everybody here. You know, our questions to pose to the guys. I have a couple, but obviously there would be more valuable and technical questions from you guys.
Is the document something we can comment?
I hope I did. 1 second.
Yeah, if we do, then we just add it.
So Tal. So we pushed it over into the Nephew Google Docs space. So it should be available, shouldn't it, Tal, to members?
That's more a document setup. So if a document set up to open up to a whole world for comments, then we should be able to comment.
Let me just double check.
Sorry. Yeah, it should be.
Should be right. 1 second.
Yeah, so our Google Drive has, I think, comment permissions for everybody, and it's world viewable. But we've had a lot of issues with the permissions there. Let me know if there's any trouble, and I'll fix it.
1 sec. I'll just double check the doc.
Yeah, it's
So
yeah,
if
it's
I
telling
go,
me I need to request edit access. So
if I go share, so it's people with access. It has everybody listed, or a lot of people listed. But
See,
then no, it's okay, viewer, okay, commenter. Could you sort that access, Tal, or is that something you have to do on an individual personal basis, like for every member?
It shouldn't be.
Yeah, so your problem is anyone with a link, it's a viewer. If you can make anyone with a link as a commenter, then we can comment.
I posted,
and we can also make suggestions to add things into the document, and then you can approve it. So,
yeah,
so
I posted to the Slack,
Mhm.
the SDK discussion SDK with the link there. I hope
Mhm.
that's, if people can try that link. You
Yeah.
should have commenter access.
Yeah, it works. Yeah, you can.
Yeah.
I can comment.
Yep, there you go.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
sure. If we could just put in the I'll start the wish list questionnaire or whatever.
Yeah, now
List
I can suggest. That'll be great. No, thank you.
Cool.
One. Okay, before we close in, like last thing, like Stephen, I think we've discussed on this one quite a bit of time. So I think it's time to, we can, in your document for the point 5, can we start having these pros and cons kind of approaches like flux and then this operator? I think this will help to avoid further discussion repeated. Yeah.
Is POC doc or the task doc?
Yeah, I think the task doc, or not the POC, the task doc where you have 5 where hand thing is there. So we don't discuss. I mean, we can discuss, but we know this has been already discussed and this is the conclusion, right?
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's about it, right, for the today.
Very quick administrative issue. So we're consolidating the calendar now. As you saw, it's some work. This particular meeting uses Zoom invites, right, rather than the standing Zoom link. I wonder if we can change it to just use the SIG1 Zoom link for now, just to consolidate everything around one approach. Would that be okay?
I didn't understand. Do you want to change some Zoom configuration?
Yeah, so Sandeep, you've created this calendar, and it's no fault of your own, right? Because we didn't have a real policy, and you use Zoom to send personalized invites. In discussing with Linux Foundation, we said we will consolidate everything to use the standing Zoom links. So since the work group is part of SIG1 and there's no overlap, we don't have a problem right now. I think we should just use the SIG1 Zoom link. It just makes life easier.
No problem.
Cool with me. So there's not a lot of Zoom links.
yeah, no problem. I'll discuss. I mean, I'll chat with you in Slack if for clarification.
Yeah, I have an FEO SDK meeting in my calendar now. I think that was amended, was it? Or that was added recently.
Yeah, I think we saw that. Yeah, we saw that once. Can you make the changes?
Things the calendars are starting to work nicely now. I also have the 7 a.m. meeting in the morning as well, so that's good.
Okay.
Yeah. We tested.
It's tonight for some of you guys, but.
All right, I understand. Thanks, Tal. I take the point. I'll talk to you again in the Slack for if I have any doubt. Okay.
Thanks everyone, especially Sandeep and team from India. It's like 10:30 for you guys. 10:40.
Yeah. You know the time, right? You are.
Yeah, I know the time. Yeah, I know. I'm from there. So.
Yeah. That's okay. I mean, we have to, this is one of the meeting I have to. I am interested. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.